Hey everybody, Sandra here, Plant Rich Sandra. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. On this episode today, I would like to have a little heart-to-heart about my recent trip to southern France, and also to go ahead and talk in general about international travel and how to remain compliant when you are traveling transatlantic or any long distance trip or for several days, how to handle that. So that is the topic of today's episode. First of all, let me just tell you that the trip was overall 5 days, and we left on a Thursday morning, and we traveled, Thursday afternoon, and we traveled pretty much all night, Thursday night. And we arrived in Nice on Friday morning, and we hit the ground running. And so we toured all day on Friday, and then they gave us a very late dinner Friday night, and then we got up Saturday morning and toured all day. And Saturday night we had dinner on our own. We got to pick our own restaurant. And then on Sunday we toured all day again, and then Sunday night dinner was not a restaurant of our choosing. We all ate together at this one specific place. And then Monday morning we all went back to the airport, and it was an all-day journey to get back home. So altogether 5 days on the trip. So first, let me just say that when you're a Nutritarian, international travel can be a bit of a challenge. If you are traveling by yourself, then it isn't so bad. But and if you have 100% of your own choices to make, it can be pretty easy. But when you are with a group and you are not given opportunities of choosing your own restaurants, it is more of a challenge. One other thing I would like to mention is that altogether we were a group of 24 participants on this trip, and so me being one of the 24, and 22 of the other 23 were absolutely lovely people, and I would travel with any of them again in a heartbeat. But the fact does remain that they were not my tribe. None of them knew me, and I didn't know any of them. And so from a Nutritarian standpoint, that did pose quite a bit of a challenge. And so I wanted to say here today that I have a new appreciation for those of you who do this kind of thing for a living, your career, where you are presented with new people, and where you are going out to dinner, business dinners with people, or going to conferences where dinner is being provided and you have no personal options. I have a new appreciation for what you have to go through when you're around brand new people who have no clue what you're about as far as your health is concerned and your food choices. This was hard for me. It was one of the harder things I've done recently, and the difference between this trip and the Italy trip and last summer's Peru trip was that those people pretty much knew me, and some of them I've taught with for years, and some of them I taught years ago. And when they were in my class, they knew me as morbidly obese when they were my former students. So they understood what I am about and what I'm trying to do now. On this trip, wonderful people, but they had no clue who I am, what I'm about. And so it was a little bit awkward for me to explain what I was trying to do without coming across as difficult. And you don't want to be too wordy. You don't want to bore them with some information that they really are not that concerned about. So you have to pick and choose what you're going to say to new people regarding what you are doing. Or you just give in and just eat what they're eating, whether you want to or not. So those are your options. Do what you're going to do, and don't explain it. Do what you're going to do, and try to allow people to kind of have an idea of what you're doing, so that they're not so confused, that you're not trying to be difficult, or don't do what you're going to do and go off your plan and take a vacation from your plan and give in and eat what everybody else is eating. Those are your options. So I chose to stick to my plan and to explain when I needed to people. If I was sitting directly across from somebody, if they asked me a question, I would explain. So the 2 restaurants that we ate out at as a group, our tour director called ahead and did a very good job of having them fix compliant things for me. I got the first evening I got this wonderful quinoa, and they swore to me there was no salt in it, no oil in it, and I believed them. I tasted it, I'm like, oh, but there wasn't anything in it that I couldn't have, and it had fresh vegetables mixed in with it. It was really good with a salad, and they brought me balsamic on the side and some lemon wedges. And the second night, my new friends and I, the colleagues that I met on this trip, wonderful women, we went to an Italian restaurant in Nice, and I was able to get a lovely dinner there, a nice salad with balsamic and lemon, and it was really good. And I ate my beans before we went, so I was not starving to death and miserable. And the third night, let's see, when was that the first? Oh, the third night, the final night, the dinner there, they also accommodated me with some dry grilled, roasted, I can't remember now, vegetables and a salad. And so it worked out really well. So the people I was sitting with, would ask me a question or two, and so I explained it as best I could. So as far as that went, it worked out really well. What did I take with me on the plane? How did I handle the plane? We left at I met one of the teachers. We flew together going and coming back. Going, we were seated next to each other on the 2 flights. Coming back, we were not seated. They had us not sitting next to each other, but we were on the same flights. 3 flights coming back. And so what I ended up doing going on the trip was I took this soft-sided right here, and I took it with me to the airport. I had my purse, but when I got out to the gate, that's the only time it mattered, I dismantled my purse and I put everything in my carry-on, and this became my personal item for the first flight, which was was a 3-hour flight to Atlanta, I believe it was. And so what I took with me was I took 2 bottles of ice in the cooler, and I took 2 cans of salt-free beans, Pop-Top cans of salt-free beans. I took some pre-cut up raw veggies in plastic bags, I should say, Ziploc bags. Blueberries in their own little clamshell that I threw away after I ate the blueberries, but I didn't want them smushed, so I rinsed out the clamshell that I purchased them in and rinsed them and then put them back in there so that they stayed good. And I also took apples, cherry tomatoes, instant oatmeal, some paper bowls, a plastic spoon, a Ziploc bag of raw and unsalted nuts, and then a second can of the Pop-Top black beans in my carry-on. Okay, so when I got, and I took some dried fruits, some freeze-dried fruits in my carry-on as well. When I got to the first airport, which was in Tampa, I went in and I checked my big suitcase. And then I found a bench away from people, and I went ahead right at that moment and ate my first can of Pop-Top beans, plastic spoon, just sat down on a bench away from people and ate that, threw that can away. And then I went ahead and dumped the second can and tried to rinse it and drain it as much as I could. I dumped it into a clean Ziploc bag, empty one that I had here in this soft-sided case. And then I went through security. So I didn't have anything with a lot of liquid in it because I had just drained and poured that can. At that moment, I poured it into the Ziploc bag. I went through the security, and when I got out to the gate, I found a place away from people and ate my celery sticks because they are noisy. So I did not want to be sitting out at the gate and munching on the celery sticks, and I did not want to be on the plane eating my celery sticks. So I ate that away from people at the gate, or after I got off the tram, but before finding my gate. And then that's when I dismantled my purse and put it into the carry-on and just had the this as my personal item, my soft-sided. Okay, so then I went out to the gate, and when I was out to the gate, I think that may be where I met. No, I did not meet Derek until I actually got on the plane. I had no clue who he was. We had not communicated one-on-one before the trip, so I did not know him yet or who he was. I didn't meet him till I got on that first plane, actually. Okay, so I also, before I got on the tram, before I went through security, I took those 2 bottles of ice and pitched them. I threw them away. And then when I got out to the gates, I went to the first Starbucks. There's always a Starbucks out there. And this has happened every single time. I go up there and I say, "May I please purchase a large cup of ice?" And they say, "Purchase? No, we'll give it to you." And they always give me a large cup of ice. Then I immediately go sit down, and I have another empty Ziploc bag in my little thermal here, and I pour the ice into it, zip it up, and put it down in here. And that is my replacement for the 2 bottles of ice that I threw away, and that gets me through keeping everything chilled just enough until I eat it. And so I always eat the things that need to stay cool first. And so when I got on, and then I had that, and I got on the plane with my so-called personal item here that went under the seat, and my purse was in the carry-on. I did not need it. Oh, and by the way, I put my phone, my earbuds in here in this little front pocket, and also up in this little pocket right here. Everything that I was going to need while in flight, I put it in this little lunchbox here. And I did not need to go up into the carry-on at all, up in the overhead compartment, during that 3-hour trip. So during that 3-hour trip, I munched quietly on everything that I had, all the veggies, etc. By the time we got to to Atlanta, the only thing I had left was my Ziploc bag of beans I still had, because I had just eaten one, so I wanted to save those as long as I could. And 1 bag of romaine lettuce was all I had left. So we were there at the gate, and I ate my beans just before we got on to our transatlantic flight. I ate the beans right out of the Ziploc bag with a spoon. Didn't heat them, season them, didn't do anything to them. I just ate them right out of the bag and threw the little Ziploc bag away. And I went ahead and I put the romaine down into and I got my purse out. I also got some napkins and completely dried this out. And then I incorporated this into my carry-on. I stuffed underwear and things like that inside of it, and it fit in there like a glove. This is a soft-sided one, and it fit perfectly into my carry-on with stuff in it, so it didn't take up a whole lot of space, and my purse became my personal item again. And I put the romaine lettuce down in there with the intention of eating it, but I had already eaten so much food that I had taken with me that I ended up throwing that romaine away. I'd already eaten another bag of romaine anyway. This was just my last little bag. And okay, so during the second flight was when I ate the things that did not need to be refrigerated. The cherry tomatoes, and anything else, the apple, a couple of the apples, etc., an orange, things like that I had with me that were not needing to be refrigerated. They were down in my purse at that point. They were up in the carry-on for the first flight, but then I put them down into my purse and had that. And I had the nuts, and I had some Mary's Gone crackers, and I was good to go. And so there was nothing on that flight that I could eat from what they brought me. I think there was one thing, I can't remember now, there was maybe one item on the tray. That was pretty much it that I could eat. So everything else, I just gave away or whatever, or just, I can't remember now, I told them no or whatever. So that is how I handled the transatlantic flight. And then in my checked piece, I had 1 or 2 cans of Pop Top beans per day in my checked suitcase, and 1 or 2 cans of salt-free diced tomatoes, Pop Top. I also brought more Mary's Gone crackers with me, and I brought, I almost forgot. I did bring several Larabars with me, both the fancy ones, the organic superfood Larabars, and the plain ones, the blueberry, the lemon, the apple pie, the cashew, etc., and brought them with me on this trip. And we did not have to change hotels. We were in the same hotel every night. I did pay extra to have a room to myself because sometimes I get up at 4 and sometimes I snore. And I did not want to have to bother anybody. I like to spread out sometimes. I like to repack and rethink, and I wanted to watch French TV, and I didn't think that a roommate would care to do that. So I had a room to myself with a queen-size bed, and I was able to kind of spread my things out. Closet space. I laid all my cans and my things up in the closet and would decide each day what I was going to take with me, etc. So but I will say that I did stress eat while I was there, but nothing was non-compliant. I would get back to the room sometimes and would stress eat on more nuts than I should have. On the journey home, everything that I had left, I stress ate. Even though I had already had my allotment, I ate it anyway. And so I feel like I probably did put on extra weight, and I was too scared to weigh when I got back, so I didn't. And I started right back in on a healthy plan when I got back. I started something new, which I have mentioned in the support group. I mentioned this. What I did was I would eat only my raw vegetables throughout the day. In the morning, I'd have my cup of coffee, but then I would just eat raw vegetables all to work until I would get home from work at like 4 o'clock. Then I would have the things that what I consider to be my yummies. I had my bowl of vegetable soup last week in the afternoons, and I had my my fruit. However I was going to eat my fruit, I would eat that in the afternoon, and my cup of beans in the afternoon, and I got back on track wholeheartedly. And so before I left on the trip, I know I weighed about a little bit less than 119 before I left, and I weighed this morning, and again I'm back to less than 119. This morning at 6:30 I was 118.8, so I feel pretty good about that. I have no clue and don't want to know the damage I did on this trip, but I did want to mention that that is how I did it. Oh, I almost forgot to mention with the oatmeal. Yes, I did forget to mention that. So I had the paper bowls, and I used double paper bowls because they do get pretty soggy. I've discovered at work they get pretty soggy. So I had them in a bag, clean, away from the other things in my purse, and here in this little thermal thing, soft-sided thermal thing. And so I put the two, I usually use one, but I put 2 packets of instant oatmeal into a paper bowl, and I asked the flight attendant for 2 cups of hot water. And oops, let me back that up. Before I put the oatmeal in, I opened up a pack of freeze-dried mixed fruit. It had bananas, apples, and strawberries in it, and maybe some chunks of pineapple, freeze-dried. They're very expensive, but they're worth it when you're traveling. Very lightweight. They don't add weight to anything. And so I put that in there, and then I put one of the cups of hot water in and let it sit, and I stirred it a little bit, and then I put the oatmeal in it, and then I've added more of the rest of the hot water in there and let it sit for a minute, and that would satisfy me both physically and emotionally, along with the beans that I had already had, kind of away from people, because people kind of look at you funny when you're sitting there either with a can of beans and a plastic spoon, or with a Ziploc bag. You folded it down and you're sitting there eating cold beans straight out of a Ziploc bag. You're going to get some funny looks. And sure, nobody there knows you, but it still sometimes feels kind of funny, and I do still sometimes feel a little self-conscious, but that's how I did it. So the instant oatmeal, I found out the second morning. I did not set my alarm that night before, that first night. We were all completely exhausted. We were kept out very late, and everybody was like falling asleep at that first welcome night dinner. And so when I got back to the room that night, my head hit the pillow. I was out before I could set my phone, and I didn't call the front desk and ask them to give me a wake-up call or anything. The next morning, my cell phone rings, and it's one of the EF representatives that was on the trip with us, and they're like, "Hey, Sandra, we're about to get on the bus to go. It's 10 minutes till 9. The bus is about to pull out. I was just wondering, are you going to be going with us this morning?" And I'm like, "Holy crap!" Because normally I'm up at 4 o'clock my time, but the time was 6 hours off, and so I was completely thrown for a loop. I slept through everything, did not wake up, and I said, "I can be ready in 30 minutes. They said, "Okay, well, we're going to go, and you just call call the tour director whenever you're ready, and then we'll figure out, either you can take an Uber to meet us where we are at that moment, or we can swing around and pick you up or something. We'll figure out something." I'm like, "Gotcha, okay." So I went ahead after I got up, and I made my oatmeal there in the room with, they had a cute little hot coffee pot there. It's really, really a neat thing. It just was a plastic tray, it looked like a plastic tray with this coffee pot sitting on it. And when you go put your water in it, it's a hot water pot. When you put your water in it, then you bring it over and you just slide it back down on this little knob, and then you punch a button on the top, and within 2 minutes you have hot, violently boiling water. It's crazy. I'd love to have one of those things. So anyway, I had my oatmeal, and I ate an apple or something else that morning. And then whenever I did meet up with the group, they said there was only fruit in heavy syrup at the breakfast buffet that morning in the hotel. So I was really glad, and I had my own coffee in the room. They had this neat little instant that tasted amazing, espresso, that tasted as good as any cup of coffee I've ever had, and it was just a pack of instant powdered instant coffee. But so that first morning, my breakfast was in the room with my own supplies. The second morning, I made daggum sure I was up, and I ate my oatmeal in the room, and then I went down, and I had maybe another apple or whatever in the room, and I went down, and that morning they had fresh fruit. They also had veggies. They had some fresh cut tomatoes. They had cucumber. They had fresh pineapple. It was really, really nice. And the coffee. And so I had a nice breakfast with my oatmeal in my room and the stuff that they had down at the breakfast. And then the third morning, I think it was the same thing. I had, the breakfast there. It was really good in the hotel, so that worked out. And also wanted to mention that at the restaurants, all three restaurants actually, I managed to get fruit for my dessert, and it was wonderful. You do pay for that at the little Italian restaurant that the ladies and I went to. It was pineapple that was on their dessert menu, and I did pay a lot for it, but it was worth it. It was fresh pineapple, cut real cute, kind of the way they had done it in Italy, and it was really, really good. Let's see here. What else did I want to mention? Okay, I think it seemed like there was something else, but I can't remember now what it was. So, but anyway, that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about regarding this trip. I would eat my beans each day whenever I had a moment to eat them. Oh yeah, that was one of the other thing I wanted to mention was the wonderful open air market. It was called Cours Salea, Coursalea, in Nice. You've got to go there every day. Beautiful fresh produce. And I bought a whole cucumber, I bought a yellow bell pepper, I bought some beautiful blueberries at one point. I bought oh my god, the most gorgeous plump figs, huge figs from Provence. OMG, I was in heaven. I bought them twice. And other produce and some oranges I could peel, or grapefruit, I think, and a couple of bananas. And then there was on the streets of Nice, on the sidewalks, there were some wonderful little stores that had produce outside. And whenever I had a moment, not with the big group, but when I was hanging out shopping during our free time with some of the other women or by myself, when I saw an opportunity to buy some fresh produce, I did. And no, I did not always have an opportunity to wash it, but I had wet wipes with me. And when I had an opportunity to, there was this nice public restroom that I paid 50 centimes, half a euro to use, and twice I went in there, and they had it was very clean. And I washed off like my cucumber or something in there. And then I went down to Promenade des Anglais, which is right there on the beach. Found a nice chair. It was in the sun, but I had my sunglasses, so I was good to go. And ate some of my stuff for my lunch one day out there. And did not feel the need to find a restaurant for lunch when I was by myself. And so that worked out perfectly. And that's another thing that you can consider doing when you have your own free time, is that you can find your food wherever you daggum well please. When you're with a group, it isn't so easy to do, but you can make do. But that's pretty much all I think I needed to say on this episode. Just remember that it is possible to stick to your plan. You do not have to give up. And if you get to a point where it's either go without or give in, I just want to strongly encourage you to experiment with going without for a little while, and keep stuff in your suitcase. And when you get back to your hotel room, when you and your spouse are back in your hotel room, or you're back in your room with your traveling companion or by yourself, then you can eat the things that you took with you that you were, too shy to take out with you to munch on with other people. So I was just thinking this morning, I was kind of peckish during the church service because I did not eat very much this morning before I left. And I was thinking, how long could I go if I had to? Could I do it? I don't usually allow myself to get to that point, but how long could I go? And then I thought, that would be an interesting little experiment, an interesting challenge, is to start working on my willpower muscle, my going without muscle, but my going without but not giving in muscle, and strengthening it. And to see how long I can go before I eat. I've in the past couple years at school, when I try to intermittent fast in the afternoon and start eating in the afternoon, I get very, very distracted at work when I'm trying to teach and my tummy is growling. On the upside, though, I really like having a flat stomach while I'm at work and being able to wear things that I feel like I look good in before I start piling a bunch of food in my tummy and start pooching out. Comfortable tummy, but you can see that I've eaten a lot of volume, even if it is just raw fruits and vegetable stew and stuff like that. I'm rambling, sorry, but I'm almost done here, almost to my final point. This is something that I think I would like to experiment with, is to see how long I can go and build up that strength for situations when I have no choice but to do that. All right, so that's all I wanted to say for this episode. And thank y'all so much for being patient and joining me today, this afternoon, out here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon out in my yard with my invasive potato vines here behind me, Florida's invasive species here behind me that has not died yet in the wintertime. And if you got anything out of this episode, I would like to request that you right now give me a big thumbs up. Also, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel, Plant Rich Sandra, I hope that you will go ahead right now and click subscribe. And also, somewhere over in this area is a little bell, and I hope that you'll click it, so that you'll be notified every time I come out with a fabulous episode. And the next thing I want to say is that here in my wonderful little hometown of Webster, Florida, I have a little group that I have lovingly named Webster Eats to Live Nutritarian Support Group. We meet on Monday nights at 6:30 in the historic Webster Community Building, the same building that I went to Girl Scouts in, brownies and Girl Scouts and juniors, etc. Spent a lot of time in that building growing up. Good memories there. And now I'm developing new memories there with an awesome group of people. So far just women, but men are invited. We get together on Monday nights at 6:30, and I usually have a little presentation. And then we do a Q&A, and people share their struggles, their successes, trying to follow Eat to Live. Everybody is at their own speed. They are doing their own pace, and that's awesome that they feel the freedom and the ease to do that. That is the whole point. I wish that I had a group that I could have talked to in the beginning. So that's kind of my ministry, is giving back to anybody who is interested and wants help, and is interested and curious and desirous of getting healthy in the same way that I've gotten healthy. I give them handouts, and I've made 7 so far, and there'll be number 8 tomorrow night. And it's going to be a recipe that I just demoed this morning, which is called soca. It was a street food that I encountered while I was in Nice, and I turned it into a Nutritarian version, and there is an episode about that, and then the handout tomorrow night. And everybody who comes to the meeting is going to get a little goodie bag that is going to have 1 cup of chickpea flour and 2 tablespoons of Mediterranean pine nuts and 2 tablespoons of coconut aminos. The Mediterranean pine nuts and the coconut aminos replaced the 2 tablespoons of olive oil and the salt in the original recipe. So if you're around Monday nights, you're welcome to come. We have a little Facebook group called Webster Eats to Live Nutritarian. Find that group and request to join. You'll be more than welcome to join us on the group. I post a few things there, and also when we're meeting and when we're not going to be meeting. We're going to be meeting tomorrow night and through the rest of, and then through November, but we will not meet the Monday of Thanksgiving week. Then we'll meet again and again. Then we will not meet any Monday of my Christmas vacation and New Year's vacation. And then we'll start back up in January. So the last thing I want to say, I have an email address, and it is sanka61@yahoo.com. Sanka, like the old decaf coffee, 61, the year of my birth, @yahoo.com. Send me an email, and I will add you to my distribution list, and I will send you Word documents of all of the things that I've created so far, and you will then get all future documents. Let's see, what else was I going to say? I think that was it, and really, really, really appreciate your time, and I hope everybody has an awesome day, and we'll see y'all again soon. Okay, bye.